Hey everyone, Scooby-Doo here and welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be doing another retro rebuild of the R2-D2 Tatooine shelf that you saw in the intro. We are going to be replacing that larger R2 with a 1/6 scale, just really due to size and what I have left available to put onto the Star Wars wall since we're adding that 1-up Star Wars arcade. I'm ultimately going to try to take the insides of that R2, this one right here, the one that we're looking at, and I'm going to be putting it into the life-size R2. Because I like how that one was interactive and played music, and it was just a really cool, really cool item, and that's the reason why I had it on the wall for such a long time. So we have the shelf here, and this is a Metacom Jawa that hopefully I'm going to be putting back up on the shelf. Again, when I say hopefully, I haven't rearranged everything on here to make sure that it all fits. We have a Kit Bash Hot Toys Luke. We have a Hot Toys R2-D2 and a Sideshow C-3PO. So we're going to try to get that all up on the shelf without it looking too crowded, and then we'll be placing it back up onto the Star Wars wall. So the first things first, I just wanted to talk about this speeder for a moment. This was one of my first real paint jobs that I did about almost 4 years ago. I actually saw one of these on eBay. Somebody had painted it and he wanted like $100 for it. And I actually almost bought it. But then I decided, you know what? I'm going to just try to do a repaint myself. And so I just bought one of these in a box and then took it apart and just did all the paint job on it, which I really encourage everybody to do. If you're new to doing this kind of stuff, just pick a really small project and just kind of work on it. It's really simple, and once you do one, you can build up to doing other ones. Actually, I think my first was my Millennium Falcon, and then second was that R2 right there, and then I think this was the third one that I did. And now it's just pretty much anytime I want to make a new diorama or I see something that I want to modify, I just buy it and then modify it. I'm not like, you know, if I mess up on it, oh well, but generally things come out pretty good. So we're going to try to add this as well. I originally had it on the shelf, which you didn't see in the intro because I did another shelf afterwards, as I had it up like this. So it looked like it was hovering. So I'm going to try to do something like that again with this shelf. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is clean up the old shelf, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hold this under the sink, and I'm going to wash off a lot of the loose sand. And when you get moldacine wet, you can't really remold it, but you can kind of soften it up and smooth it out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this wet, which is another reason why I like working on shelves, because I can just hold this whole thing underneath the faucet. So I'm going to get this wet, soften it up, add some more moldacine to some areas here, and then we'll have a nice empty template, or blank template. There we go. And then I'll start rearranging the figures and see if we can come up with something. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, I just wanted to show you this really quickly. So I got this wet, and when you get the moldacine wet, I'm coming back here with a steak knife, and I'm actually taking some of the layers off. It's really easy to do. How it just kind of, I just wanted to show you this. So when you get it wet, if you work with moldacine, and you don't want to like redo a whole new shelf with it, just get it wet, and it'll soften up the upper layer, and you can just come through and mold it basically however you want. And I'm using a steak knife here. Okay, now that I have all the moldacine down the way I want it to look, we're going to go ahead and do the next step, which is to add the glue and the sand. Now, I've mentioned this tons of time, with the moldacine, it takes a while for it to actually dry. I mean, it's dry now as far as like stuff's not going to move around, But for moldacine actually really to dry, it takes days and sometimes weeks, depending on how much water you put in the mix and depending on the temperature outside. So I'm going to go ahead and do this just for the video, but if you're doing this and you have a lot of time, you know, once you do a step like this, you can let this sit for a week and then come back to it. It's not necessary, especially on my particular situation, because I can put this up on the wall and it'll just dry naturally over time. And then when it does, it actually gives it even a better look than what it'll look like when this diorama is finished, because it'll start to dry out and you'll get some white that'll start coming through the paint work and stuff. So again, it's not completely dry, but we're going to go ahead and do the next step, which is to add the glue. That should be plenty, hopefully. If not, we'll add more. And again, we're just going to brush this all over the diorama. The glue is still a little bit thick because you know what I did from my last video? Remember when I said to keep it inside so it's kind of warm opposed to being cold? Guess what I did? I took it and put it back out in the garage. It happens. It definitely happens. Now, in doing modeling, and I may have brought this up before, when you do projects like this, you'll start learning new techniques for doing stuff. Like with doing the weathering I use the tempera paint. That came about because originally I used wash. I went to the hobby store and I bought wash. And one day I wanted to work on a project and I was out of wash. But I really wanted to work on the project, but I was being lazy and I didn't want to go drive up to the hobby store. So I looked around to see if I had anything at all, and I had bought the tempera paint to do some of the weathering on my life-size fet. And so I decided to go ahead and use the tempera paint just because, again, just being lazy. And now it's actually my preferred paint for doing all my weathering jobs. So, and it's the same thing with this glue. I used to use self-adhesive spray glue. I used to spray it on the moldacine and then sprinkle down the sand. And that was kind of expensive. Those cans were like $7 each. And you know, you spray them, they'd get all over the table. You have to take them outside and everything. And so, again, I was out of the adhesive glue. I had some of this glue sitting around. I was a little bit worried because it being white, but went ahead and just tried it. And now it's my preferred way to put down the sand. And it's the cheapest way. So with the tempera paint, that's the cheapest way to wash, and I think it comes out the best. And same thing with this glue. It's the cheapest way to go, and it works the best. So that's a win-win. And the only way you're going to figure these things out is by doing the stuff. Or you can watch my videos and then I pass on the information to you. That's another way. And I've learned so much stuff by doing dioramas like that, by making mistakes or running out of one thing and trying something else. All right, so this is all on there. Now also too, when I did the sculpting, I actually left footprint marks where the figures are going to go, so they sit into place really nicely. Sometimes people have asked me, well, like, when you put your figures up, do you just set them on there? No, I'll generally put a little dab of hot glue on the bottom of their feet. It doesn't ruin the figure in any way because it peels right off. I just use a little dab of hot glue and then I set them down that way. Now with this R2, I can just set him on because he's not going to fall off. But some of the other figures, I will put a little bit of glue on there. Or you can use a stand. I just don't like using stands. That's the reason why I build these dioramas. When I started collecting figures, I got a couple from Sideshow and Hot Toys, and I can go into how I didn't know that Sideshow actually made figures, and it's kind of funny, that story. But as I was purchasing the figures, they had certain kind of stands. Some had a black stand, there was octagon on the bottom, some were oval. And I'm the kind of person that likes kind of matching stuff, and so I started getting these figures with these stands that didn't match. So I decided to kind of do my own base and stand by doing these dioramas, and that's how all that got started. But anyway, so now that we got all the glue down, I was able to use, spread a little more. I was able to just use what I use, and I was able to spread it all out. Took a minute, but got it all. Give you a look on there. And now we're just going to sprinkle the sand on. Now this sand that I get is just from Home Depot, Lowe's. I still got the same 5-pound bag that I bought 4 years ago. It's not the color of the Tatooine sand. That's why we're going to come back and do the spray paint afterwards. I suppose you could get sand that was just that color, then you wouldn't have to do the spray paint, but this is really cheap, and 1 can of spray paint lasts for a while, so alright. Alright, so now we are actually going to let that set now, probably to the end of the day. Actually, I don't have any of that spray paint. Actually, I did have to order some more because I thought I was done doing the shelves. That actually should be coming either tomorrow or the next day. So now I am actually going to let this set. I'll let it dry for a couple days, and then we'll come back and finish out this shelf. One other quick update. I decided, since I was redoing this shelf, I'm going to go ahead and redo my Sand Trooper Escape Pod diorama. Now when I did this one, same way I did it 3-4 years ago, and since I changed my technique on how I do the sand and everything, and because I want them to match, I decided to go ahead and redo this one as well. Alright, so now that it's dry, and we got the spray paint over here, which is again the Sand 63. I'm going to go ahead and take these outside. I'm going to spray paint them. I also might do a little bit of spray paint with some white just to give some extra highlights, and then we'll come back in and finish up these 2 dioramas. Alright, so we finished both of the shelf as far as doing the painting, and now we got the landscape all done. And you can see where I went ahead and completed the Hot Toys Sand Trooper Dewback with Escape Pod diorama. And then the main one we were working on was our C-3PO R2-D2 with the Jawa. You see the floating sand speeder. And then we could just simply add our figures to the diorama, like so. He'll go there. And we'll also be adding the R2 and Luke. So I'm going to actually save that for the next video, because we're going to be doing the kit bash on another Sand Trooper, and I kind of want to show all of these shells together at once on the wall. Again, you can take a look at the texture. Get our Tatooine look. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful to you. It's more about doing the moldacine and reusing moldacine. Next, we're going to be working on the kit bash Sand Trooper. Actually, what I'm using is, I use a couple of items from the old Hasbro. I've already removed them. Well, the items. Using his backpack here, his pauldron. It's right here, I already got that set up. And we're gonna be weathering this Force Toys. Like I mentioned in the last video, we're gonna be repainting them, and then we're also gonna be doing the life-size helmet, Black Series helmet, and I'm gonna have these matching, and they're gonna be up on the shelves as well. Okay, so that's it. Any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. Fortunately, I got to start back work tomorrow, so maybe by this weekend we can go ahead and get that next video started. And that's it. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I shall talk to you real soon. All right, if you stayed to the very end, I felt bad not showing you at least one diorama up on the wall. So here's the Hot Toys Sand Trooper. And if you notice here too, I made a brand new Chewie and Han Solo diorama. Oop, can't show you too much. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. You guys have a fantastic week.